We're here today with Justin Reichert. Justin is running for re-election to the Lincoln Land Community College Board, District 1. We appreciate you being here today and invite you now to provide an opening statement about why you're seeking re-election this term.
Okay. Well, again, my name is Justin Reichert. I am currently the sitting board member in District 1 on the Lincoln Land Community College Board. I've been sitting on that board for the last 10 years, serving the college and serving my community. My district is the northern half of Springfield, so my southern boundary is roughly south of downtown Springfield. It goes over almost to both parkways, Veterans and Dirksen, and it goes north completely above Springfield, partway to Sherman. I have lived in my district for the last 16 years. I live in the Enos Park neighborhood. I've been in the same home for the last 16 years. Actually renovated it and helped with a little bit of neighborhood improvement, so I've been happy to stay there. One of the big things about this race for me is that I've been on the board for the last 10 years. I've been serving the community in various roles for the last 16 years, and I'm pretty invested in what we're doing at the college and the efforts we're working towards, and hopefully we'll talk about that more later. Just as some general background about me, I'm from Jacksonville. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, just 35 miles west of here. So my upbringing was also growing up in part of the district of Lincoln Land Community College. And after that, I attended college. I went to law school. And after law school, I returned back to this community where I've been for the last 16 years practicing as a lawyer. And part of what I do is represent government entities and government boards. So when the opportunity to get on this board came up, it was a nice opportunity for me to take a role sitting as a board member as opposed to being the legal advisor for the board. And it's been a really rewarding experience.
So what have you learned about boards, sitting on a board rather than advising a board?
Well, that's a great question. As the attorney for boards for the last 16 years and the 6 years before I got on the Lincoln Land Board, it was interesting advising people behind the scenes regularly. As a board member now, we're the face. We're up front in the public, and so the faculty, the administration, any students, any members of the public who come to the board meetings, they're looking at you, and that's okay. It's a different experience to experience now what I was watching my clients experience before. In a way, as an attorney, typically I am one of two or three attorneys, and as a board member, I am one of 7 board members. And so one of the things I think you figure out very quickly, you have to curb any ego you come with, and I think I tend to be a modest person, so I don't think I came with a lot of ego, but you recognize that you're one vote on that board. You don't get to tell the administration what to do. You don't get to overstep your bounds and run around deciding who gets hired in what position. You learn to be a part of the team, and that's a huge piece of being on the board is the teamwork. I've really had a lot of fun working with all the board members I've been with over the 10 years. There have been some who have come, some who have gone, some have moved on to other offices, some are still there. Some people left for medical issues. New people have come on because they were on the Lincoln Land Community College Board Foundation Board, and it was a great fit. But you're one of the board, and your goal, I think, is to help with ideas and help with a vision. Where we can help with our individual efforts, we do. I have been a part of a small team of trustees that has gone to Washington, recently and in the past to lobby for for dollars for various programs. So in that respect, it's nice that we as trustees can really try to put ourselves forward and do something to help the school, you know, whether it's grants for our aviation program or grants for helping African American males, which are typically our most underrepresented, you know, group of students. Trying to get changes with Pell Grants. Those are all things that I've been working on with some other trustees and with the president. But it's really, you have to know that you're on a board. You can't try to direct the school. You have to keep the vision, and you have to try to guide with a vision, and you have to allow the president, who is the CEO of the institution, you have to allow her to be the leader of the institution. So I hope that answered your question.
Oh, that's good.
So Lincoln Land Community College compromises all or part of 15 counties. It's
Yep.
the largest community college district in the state in terms of land mass. You've got the main campus here, you've got your 4 outreach centers, offer tons of different programs for all levels of students. You have more than 14,000 students served annually. What do you think the average Lincoln Land Community College district resident doesn't understand about the college that you wish they did?
I think, well, actually it's funny, as I've been walking around knocking on doors and asking for votes, I've run into so many people who don't even know that the community college has a board. So I just note that, first of all, that we're pretty under the radar in a lot of respects, and a lot of people don't understand that there is a government entity with a governing board. So that's one aspect. But in the bigger respect, and I admit growing up in Jacksonville, I always knew that LLCC was here. And when I came back from law school, I've known it was here, but until I got on the board, I did not understand the full scope of what's happening. And we are serving our residents in the entire district, which is over 4,000 square miles for the 15 counties you noted, and there are 7 different
I didn't
locations.
read all the facts on your about LLC, but I got a
Well,
couple of them in there.
it is the largest community college district in the state. But for everyone in the district, we are helping people basically from birth up until your twilight years. So we are providing services with childcare. It's an educational childcare service. It's also used to help students and faculty and members of the community who need someplace to take their child. If there are income issues, we have a sliding scale to help with that, because we should always be trying to serve people who have the most difficult time getting to our services. We have college for kids, so mostly grades 4 through 7 we're serving kids, but the ages, depending upon the specific program, can range anywhere from first grade up through high school ages. So that might be crafts, you know, camps for crafts, for cooking, where kids get to learn, you know, get to go use computers. There are even some robotics that are involved in some of the camps we do. Really, really cool stuff for kids that they may not always know is out there. And then when we get to high school age, we have our dual credit and dual enrollment programs. So we are providing opportunities while in high school for our kids to get credit to go to school. Not just in their own institution. We do have partnering with schools where we have teachers who are trained to teach according to our curriculum, but we also have programs, and at times it's been called College Now, but it's gone by different names. But the point of that is that we have programs that allow students to leave their high school and come and take classes at the college. It's funny because I was talking to the regional superintendent of education just a couple days ago, and he was bragging on how he had some kids at Rochester who were able to take advantage of that. Nice. And so to me, it's an amazing program. And it's also one of the ways that we do outreach to high school kids who are trying to figure out what direction they want to go. We get into their schools and we help them understand what it is we do have to offer. Once we get into college, we have our 2-year traditional education programs, and that is obviously as important as it's ever been. We also have, over the past 10 years, put a major emphasis on our workforce training programs. So, you know, not everyone wants to go get a degree, a 2-year degree and an associate's, and then go on for a 4-year degree. That's just not a realistic expectation to think every every child should do that. It's also not realistic to expect adults in our community to go back to school for a 2-year degree when they have a family to take care of, and what they're really looking for is job training and something that's a little bit quicker to get them back in the workforce. So we have a major emphasis on our workforce career training programs. We have, for adults who did not ever get a high school diploma or get a high school equivalency certificate, we have our adult education program. And that it's such a great program to see when these individuals graduate. It's really, really, really heartfelt, because a lot of times they're far enough out of school that their fears are up. They don't know whether going back to school is going to be the right fit for them, and yet we're trying to take the time and effort to educate them, get their high school equivalency, and move them beyond any of those fears they may have. It's a great program. We also have our English as a second language program. So no matter what national origin or what the primary language is, we have our program to try to help everybody become, fluent enough in English in order to move into our workforce and to be able to move on to whatever their goals are. So that's another program. And then getting into the more twilight years, we have our lifelong learning program, and that is for individuals 50 years and older. And to me, that's a really important program, because in many occasions, when people move into their elder years, it's easy for those individuals to be forgotten about. They may not have the same family still around that they used to have, the same support network. So these types of programs really help 50-plus individuals stay active and happy, and those are two essential components of being healthy and living a good life. So that might be book clubs, golfing, trips to museums, cooking classes, and there are several other that I can't name off the top of my head, but that really gets us from birth until your twilight years. We really are serving every age in the community.
So what would you say are the top pressing issues facing the college? And if given another term on the board, how would you work to address them?
Well, one of the issues that I think is most pressing is our Pell Grants. We need some legislation to amend how our Pell Grants work. Right now, Pell Grants are designed for longer-term programs, so it's much easier for students to get a Pell Grant for a 2-year degree program. However, for various of our workforce and shorter-term, more certificate programs, it doesn't have the requisite number of credit hours, and therefore they can't get Pell Grants. And to me, that's really tragic, because that doesn't make their education worth any less to their lives than it does anybody who's going on for a 2-year degree. It just means they have a different path that fits them, and they may need to get into the workforce a little sooner, or those may just be the workforce type of skills that they're looking for. But we were just out speaking with Congressman LaHood and Davis, Senators Duckworth and Durbin. I was just out there a few weeks ago, and that's one of the major issues that we're pressing with them that would help all community colleges. And if we don't get that fixed, one of the problems it creates on the backside, first of all, the biggest problem is if people can't get a Pell Grant and they can't afford to go to school because it's not a long enough program. The second issue is that then if individuals, to try to get the Pell Grant, they start out in a 2-year degree program, but then because they realize how that system works, they know that their real path is to do a workforce certificate program or something that's not long enough for a Pell Grant. They do that. They go down that workforce career path. They complete it, and then they're done. They leave the school. Unfortunately, what that does to the school is it looks like we have failed a student because they signed up for a 2-year degree, but they finished a workforce program that was shorter, and it makes it look like we failed when in fact we're not failing that student, and that student didn't fail. The way the legislation is right now is failing those students.
So an example of that might be truck driver training.
Mm-hmm. You might have truck driver training, you might have welding, you might have automotive technology or aviation mechanic programs. I just find it to be very unfair.
The other problem that I've heard with Pell Grants is some of the students have to take classes to get up to speed.
Yes.
So that they use Pell Grants to do that, and then when they really get into the credit-bearing courses, they begin to run out of Pell Grant funds, right? There's a limit on...
The maximum limit, I believe, is around $6,000 for Pell Grants. Our students who get Pell Grants average around $3,000 for Pell Grants, but yes, it's all based on the financial aid formula, and sometimes that happens. We do have testing when people come into school, into the college, to try to assess if they are behind in a particular program. So we don't want to waste their time and money putting them in programs to catch them up if it's not needed. So they test,
Right.
and if according to those tests they need a class, we try to do that. We also offer free tutoring to try to help people who need that help. I mean, that's one of the things community colleges do that makes us, in my opinion, that makes us the best of education. We try to make sure everybody gets the help that they need. But that is an unfortunate issue that you mentioned.
Sure.
Did our congressional delegation, did they seem hopeful that this was possible, these types of changes?
I want to say yes. I want to be optimistic. It's very difficult to understand whether or not the funding you're looking for is really going to come through in a federal budget. And these are pretty chaotic political times. So I guess what I can say is that they were all very receptive of us. Everyone was very receptive. There were different levels of interest by different folks. I guess it's fair to say that. And one area, actually, I was impressed with Senator Duckworth in that she really already seems to be moving towards some issues to try to help education. And one of her initiatives is to have the Department of Labor pay for a position that would help identify internships. That's a big issue for us as well.
For your specifically for Lincoln Land?
For everyone in the state of Illinois.
Wow.
So it would be, we would love to have it if it was just for Lincoln Land for our students, but for the state of Illinois. And she had introduced that legislation before. It did not work, and she is introducing it again.
Okay.
So I guess I think it'd be great if it happened. Now, whether it does or not, that indicated to me that she really does care about education. And when we came to her asking for changes with the Pell Grant, she and her staff were fully aware of that issue and planned to work on it. When we talked to Congressman Davis and Congressman LaHood, they both indicate they're aware of those issues and they're going to work on it also. Senator Durbin, it was more of a group-style meeting with other community colleges, and he was making sure that his staff were taking notes on the specific issues. So I would like to think that we're going to get some efforts on our behalf. What I do know is I want to keep working on it because it's not a done deal until the money's here. So we've got to keep working on it.
Got it. How would you categorize the relationship the college has with the school districts within its boundaries?
I think they're very good. As I mentioned, the regional office or the regional superintendent of schools, I spoke with him the other day, and and he is expressing as well that there is a lot of good cooperation going on between us. Our efforts have been very good in our various areas, in talking to high schools, in implementing our dual credit and our dual enrollment programs, our programs that allow students to come to Lincoln Land. And I think there is a recognition by the schools in general that the earlier we can get students exposed to some sort of college curriculum or some sort of college campus, the more comfortable they feel. And I think that's a huge priority for us, is to try to make them feel comfortable before they ever show up, because a scared student is usually more likely to quit, to not succeed. And so if we can alleviate those fears, that's a huge issue.
How about the relationship the college has with the business community, because the college also does a lot of the workforce training and redevelopment? How would you categorize that relationship?
I think it's good. We would always like it to be better. One program, well, I guess I can use one example of something that's happened. I had mentioned earlier that we know that African American males are one of our most underrepresented classes of students in the community colleges. So to combat that issue, the community college has created a while back an open door mentoring program for African American males. And as a part of that, beyond just possibly having mentoring opportunities within the college, back when the Chamber's Q5 initiative was going, they were kind enough, and I think wise, in that they provided us a grant to help fund some startup of identifying mentors and intern opportunities. We have been working with various business leaders who also came forward through that Q5 initiative, and them helping us identify other business leaders who are creating mentorship opportunities and internship opportunities. And that has led to some of those individuals getting those opportunities, actually getting hired. But the most important part is it really exposes them to what the world would look like in these areas they may want to try to work. We've had, in fact, some of our student trustees that I've served with, one of which did one of these internship opportunities and is working his way into employment because of it. So it's a program that works.
So economic development's certainly been a topic of discussion in the last couple of years here in Sangamon County. The county government did that report that led to the formation of the Land of Lincoln Economic Development Corporation. How do you think the EDC is doing? I know they're still getting their feet on the ground, but...
I feel like it's too early for me to form an opinion on that. I think the idea is a great idea. I think there were a lot of lessons learned from the Q5 initiative that I hope the EDC is going to take further, make better use of the money, make better use of opportunities, help guide people looking to come into our community, find places where they might want to start businesses. I'm not sure what to say. I support it. I do. I want to give it the chance to do great things here, and I think it has the possibility of doing great things here. But I think where my focus is at more so is the economic development that we're doing at the college. I have some direct opportunity to guide that. So, over the past 10 years, we've built a little over $35 million worth of new buildings and structures. We have done that to update our programs and to be able to expand programs. We built our Workforce Career Center. We built the A. Lincoln's Common, which is a great place for students to meet, have events. They needed, study space, something they desperately needed. In Taylorville, we used to have students, their classes were all out of modular buildings, and so we built a new building there to get them into a more modern facility. Also at Taylorville, we got a grant and completely re-equipped the welding program there, because we know welding is one of those areas where there is a shortage for qualified people for those jobs. We have renovated completely the Jacksonville office. The Workforce Career Center is probably the major build that sticks out in my mind, and that was expanding, our truck driver training programs, our culinary program, our solar program, our wind program. Let's see what else. Our automotive technology program, and then that's been usually through bonding, but we have managed to do all of that $35 million without raising our tax rates and without having an effect on tuition. So that's been a part of our mission as well. Is we need to build and we need to expand, but we need to do it without especially costing our students excess money to come get an education.
Do you think it remains affordable?
Yeah,
educate? Okay.
Absolutely. To me, it's without question, it's affordable. 87% of our students leave without debt. And as
87?
a person, 87%
Wow.
leave without any debt. And as a person who still owes about $30,000 on my law school loans, that's really important.
Jeez.
If you know, I love it. I went to Illinois College for my 4-year degree in Jacksonville, and I did it at a time I had moved away for a few years to Missouri with my mom, and I had just moved back, and I went there with some family members, and you know, realizing the cost of the education, all of my education, I wish I would have paid more attention to what Lincoln Land was doing. I would have had a lot less money to pay back right now.
When you when it becomes budget time and it's you're looking as a board member at the budget, what priorities and principles guide you when you're presented with that budget so that you know if it's something you can support?
Well, the major principle is always affordability. Mm-hmm. We do not want to increase our tax rates. We do not want to affect our college tuition rates based upon spending money on something that may not be needed. We always want to make sure that our quality of education remains unaffected. So our quality of education is great. And when we decide on how we're going to spend money, we do not allow that to hurt our programs. So as an example, a few years ago, or very recently, when we couldn't get a state budget for a couple of years, we didn't know when or if we were going to get money from the state. But we still managed within our budget, we still managed all of our programs at the same level of quality and without any layoffs. So that is generally how we govern it at all times. We always want to maintain our traditional education programs, but we are also always looking for where the community is telling us we may need workforce training. So as an example, we have our Capital City Training Center up on Mason Street in downtown, actually in my district. And we created a medical assistant program specifically because the medical community was crying out for more medical assistance. So we created that as a response. And so, yeah, we budgeted for that. We budgeted for that creation. But we have been conservative enough with the budget that we made sure we had the money to do it without causing harm to any other program in the college.
Some of those decisions regarding money are not necessarily made by you. They're made by the legislature. I'm particularly thinking of the recent $15 an hour minimum wage by 2025. Yeah. What effect do you think that's going to have on the college?
Well, it's hard to figure out exactly what all the effects might be. One thing in particular that I've thought about that may be affected, and I want to say may because we're not there yet. I don't want to project it as happening, but we may have to look at the number of student jobs on the campus decreasing. I really would hate to do that, but that may just be that may end up being a reality if we have a certain level of funding available for student jobs. We just may be able to have less students serving in those roles, which means we're going to have to be a lot more creative about finding out where we can help those students. That takes us back to internship opportunities and making sure we're developing those connections. We're going to have to find other places for students to get work experience and to earn some money. I mean, some students very much need those jobs in order to afford going to school. You know, that poverty among students is a real issue. You know, we have experienced that. We have food pantries we do regularly. We have scholarships from the foundation, emergency funds and scholarships from the foundation to help people get through really hard times. And sometimes we find ourselves surprised when we find out there's been a student that their utility was about to be shut off, or they hadn't been eating much for a couple weeks, and you wouldn't think that would be happening, but it is happening, and so those are other efforts we have to do to make up for those students' hard times.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit here. I know last year the Ag Department received an $18 million gift from a
Yeah.
trust. Ag is obviously a huge part of our economy here in the Lincoln Land District. What do you want to see happen there with that donation in hand? And I do note that there's possibly a building coming.
Yes.
Is that correct? The Agriculture Center for Excellence?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you to the Crayer family because they are the donors. Secondly, I'll say that on Wednesday we have our board meeting,
Yeah.
and at that board meeting I'll be voting to help, I'll be one of the votes to help approve a $7.5 million bond issue. And that bond issue is specifically going towards building our ag building, which will be located somewhere on our main campus. The exact details are still being worked out, but and that bond will be paid off by the gift. The gift, by the way, is a gift in perpetuity, so we are living off of the income of the gift. And so we have figured it out that the most economical way we can build that building is by bonding and then paying it back off of the proceeds of the gift. So that is one thing that I want to see happen, and that is something that should be done around January of 2020.
Built by 2020 or started by 2020?
That's the goal. The goal is to be built by January of 2020. There's never a guarantee on when construction is going to be finished. You know, I've had enough government clients that I know you can try for a date, but
I guess if you're not relying on the state for the funding, I guess that's part of the benefit.
yeah, well, I think wisely we only rely on the state for about 8% of our funding total,
Okay.
so we don't have those problems. But so what else would I like to see in that?
Yeah, what do you want to see in the building and with those funds used for?
Well, so in creating the building, it's obviously going to be used to house large equipment and various things that students are going to get the experience using. So while I think most students in our community would think of farming as you sit on the tractor and you plow rows and that's it, it's become hugely technological, very advanced, from research and design on seeds to precise measurements in how seeds are separated, where seeds can go, what the soil content is, what types of crops would go by each other. GIS, running combines or tractor. It's a really broadening field, and we want to also use some of that money to educate people that these other opportunities are out there. So we want to be sure that if there are kids or other adults in our community living in the urban areas and they only have one vision of what farming is, we want to make sure they understand that, look, there are engineering aspects, there are design aspects, there are science aspects, research, design. We want to try to encourage them to come in and be a part of that program because we know it's a growing field. You know, and again, this effort is being made to expand our programs because we want to be ready and we want to meet the job needs, and we want to give our students the best opportunities to be ready for those jobs when they're available.
So as a journalist, I like transparency, and as on
Yeah.
the Lincoln Land website, and there's no way to contact board members. Do you think there should be a way to contact your?
That's funny because I had
Interesting.
forgotten that there was not.
an
I
email address
don't
or
usually
something?
look at my own picture and my own name on the website. I barely look at it when I get the Forward
Yeah.
magazine. I think that would be fine. I'd be happy to recommend that.
Okay, just a little transparency.
Yeah,
that's
I
all.
know that we all provided early on. We provided
Yeah.
our email addresses, our phone numbers to the administration so that people can contact us. And I believe that they are supposed to, if anyone is trying to contact us, they're supposed to make sure we're getting
Just
that.
getting it through to you. Okay, that's good to know. That's in place.
But yeah,
then.
I appreciate that because honestly, I'm not looking at my own picture on there and my name. So
I'm making sure they got the right one
If you would
there.
ask me the question a different way, I would have assumed that my phone number was on there.
Oh, okay. Do you have any questions?
I'm good.
You're good. Well, we thank you for meeting with us today, Justin, and invite you to give a brief closing statement as to why voters should choose you on Election Day.
Well, thank you. And let me start my closing by, I do want to say thank you to all of the voters who have voted for me in the past 2 elections and have given me 10 years on this board. And in that period of time, while it was sort of unique that when I got on the board, I got a phone call from the guy, from someone who was the chairman at the time, asking if anybody I knew was interested. And my mom was just starting Lincoln Land Community College. My sister was just starting LLCC. I had a few other cousins starting LLCC. And it just seemed like a coincidental but good fit. But since then, in the past 10 years, I've really come to love the school the way I think board members should. So I'm personally invested in that. I'm personally committed to making efforts, to continue the programs that the college needs and to continue to try to get legislators to legislate so that students, whether they're going for a 2-year degree or they're going through a workforce program, that they can all get access to Pell Grants. I'm committed to trying to make sure we're working with our legislators and working in the community to continue to address the underrepresented communities and specifically the African American males in the community. I am committed to trying to make sure we continue to expand, our diesel program where we know we're going to need jobs, our aviation mechanics program where we know in the next 20 years we're going to have 200,000 jobs to fill. I think that I am committed to making sure we continue to identify those areas that are of need and that we continue to work with whatever legislators we need to, or that we internally make whatever decisions we need to fund those programs and to give people in our community those opportunities. So I think I would wrap it up with that, again, just saying thank you for this opportunity to speak to everyone. Thank you to the people who have voted for me in the past. I really hope that they will again. I would like to serve 4 more years on this board, and I think that's it.